Today's well source is Jen Wirtz. Jen has been an educator in Colorado for decades. She's a devoted parent, a speaker, a mentor of young teachers, a writer, and a seeker. She has a master's in education, a teacher's lens, and a doula's experience. Having run both for-profits and nonprofit businesses built around empowering families and self-expression, along with extensive postgraduate social and emotional intelligence training. Jen knows how to counsel parents who want to do their best by their children. She believes in not being committed to perfection, but to presence of mind. She has done her own deep personal work, which has allowed her to discern what really matters: authenticity, humility, and connection. As a coach, she weaves these attributes of consciousness together for families to help create parenting that is honest, nurturing, and transformative. So welcome, Jen. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Shelley.
So I wanted to start with this because when I was just reading your website and learning more about you, I saw that you wrote inside of the first page that I looked at, "I've been devoted to the practice of parenting well before becoming a mom." And I was struck by that because, one, our podcast is called Parenting Well, but also I was a very similar person growing up. I wanted to have a relationship with my children. I wanted to heal the wounds of my past. I wanted to be prepared. And so I felt like I understood and studied and worked with children long, long before I became a parent. So that intrigued me. And I was curious if we could start with you sharing a little bit about what your inspiration was. What got you interested in parenting before you were a mom?
Well, yeah. In a nutshell, it's layered and complicated, but I had sort of a rough childhood. I mean, I had a lot of things. I went to a really great school. I had a nice home, two nice homes, my mom's and my dad's. But that's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to my experience inside. Um, I was neglected emotionally, and I was
Mm.
a highly, highly sensitive kiddo. I'm still a highly sensitive person. Once you are, you always are. But it just meant that I was deeply feeling in a way that nobody in my family really recognized, noticed, or attuned to. So I had an ambiguous attachment with my own mother. Um, and I left and went far away from my family as soon as I could in my late teens,
Mm.
determined, really, like I had this dedication from the get-go to figure out what family meant. I was just really confused by it. I had a big family, six
Mm.
kids, and I was so lonely. So that's where it all began. And I also have always loved children. I had my first babysitting job at age 8,
Yeah.
every Saturday night. I mean, I was a natural with little ones. And I think too
Yeah.
that comes from my sensitivity. I could feel what they
Yeah.
were feeling and tap into it and meet them there. I didn't study education in undergrad. I traveled the world and instead filled journals with my observations of families, of kids, of parents, trying to work this out. And then after being in the workforce for a while, I realized what's juiciest for me when I'm most alive is being around children, period,
Mm.
period. So that's when I went back to graduate school. Um, and just committed to what lit me up, got my master's in education, and never looked back. I've worked in education and with families of young ones for a really long time, and even teaching. I didn't stay a teacher for my whole career. I've done a lot of other things, all to do with education, but in teaching it just became clearer and clearer to me the piece of it that was most um, important, that I felt just so passionate about, was the social emotional piece,
Mm.
which
Yeah.
that word, I'm not even sure that was a saying or an we had those words back then, aging myself, but it was all about a commitment. Excuse me, connection and communication, advocacy, their hearts, their
Yeah.
sensitivity. how they express themselves. So I took that and ran with that when I left the classroom. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. And I assume that when you're meeting with parents and the coaching that you do, that a lot of what you do focuses on helping them do that with their children, helping them find that connection, nurture that relationship, maybe listen for the things that aren't as obvious, and you have to be a little bit more patient and calm. What would you say is like a really common experience of people who come to you that want to do coaching with you?
Could you repeat that, please? That's
Yes.
just a question. I heard everything else.
I would say, what would you say is the thing when parents come to you to do coaching? What is it that they're seeking? What do they need in that?
Yeah, there are so many different ways that parents find me. Um, I think that if I were to sit way back and have that bird's eye view almost, you know, they they want to feel connected to their kids. So we love our kids. We're they're born and we've never loved anything more. It's just what happens, right?
Yeah.
Not for everyone immediately in the first few days, but it happens. We're parenting and these are our children and we are madly in love with them. I think what starts to happen as our children, especially gain voice, right, and express themselves more, is that our own histories, our own childhood comes up and it can get really confusing. So, our children's experience often I see with clients get sort of mixed in with our own. And especially when our kids have big feelings, whether
Mm,
they're highly sensitive or not. All kiddos have their feelings, they're born having them, but they are not born with the skills to express them and manage them and share them. They need to grow in these ways, and a lot of adults, a lot of parents haven't taken a look at their skill set around regulating their emotions. So that is a really big theme. Families come to me
mm.
sort of frustrated by their kiddos' behavior. I'm doing air quotes. Um, or confused by it, or just overwhelmed by it, right? And so in their work with me, I help them sort of up their self awareness around their own emotional intelligence and shift the mindset so that they are looking at their kiddos um, with more acceptance, more curiosity,
Mm,
and almost more separation, clearer boundaries. Their experience and their feelings don't have to be mixed in a chaotic way with ours. We are naturally triggered. We are symbiotic creatures to our children. And yet, if we're made aware and we practice bringing awareness to our own
mm,
reactions, our own emotions, we can then respond to our children's with a wiser mind, right? More
mm,
with more calm and more love and more curiosity to get to know them better. They're really their own beings.
mm. Yeah, and I think what you've shared, what I'm hearing and what you're sharing is sometimes we also take things pretty personal. Like if something is happening, a child is behaving a certain way, then somehow we did something that had them act that way. Um, so I think from what you're saying, it feels like that could be a little bit of a theme.
Shelley, you're exactly right. That was the other thing I was going to mention. Coming out of that is that we just all of us, me included, even the
Um,
wisest, we all take things personally too
yeah,
often, too much, and it's unconscious, right?
yeah.
So we need as parents instead to notice that we've done that, right? And then to instead step out of that. Oh, that's just me taking it personally. I am here to hold space for my kiddos' truth, for their experience, for their feelings. They may not be the same as mine. They're probably not. but it's true and real for them, right? And
Yeah.
even that, taking that ego or the self out of it, not taking things personally, behaviors personally from our children, ties back into what I was saying before. I so often work with parents on, which is the misinterpretation of behavior, right? Again, it's not personal that they're screaming on top of their lungs when you say get off the dresser. It's not personal. It really has nothing to do with you. So it's a matter of, in my work with clients, I work with them on recognizing that behavior is often simply expression, right, of feelings, needs, um, feelings or needs usually.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
our response, if we shift the mindset, we need to see that as, oh, they may be feeling lonely right now. They may be feeling frustrated right now.
Mm.
Shifting it to being curious about what their feeling and experience is, recognizing the skill that they need to develop, right, in growing their social and emotional skills, and accepting that their experience is real. This also involves, Shelley, setting boundaries around yourself,
Mm.
right? Safety first, but also just your bandwidth and
Mm.
boundaries around, as we're learning, what boundaries do we not cross? What is not okay to cross? Sometimes we need to just get uncomfortable and there needs to be a scream, right? That's not fun. That's not comfortable for anybody. But can we allow that, or is it unsafe, right? Versus hitting your
Oh.
brother. No, we're not going to continue to allow that. But we are recognizing the skill set that needs to be brought
Mm.
in and taught. So boundaries are a really important part of this too.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I I feel like sometimes our natural reaction as a parent or our response to certain behaviors that we aren't happy with can almost be shaming instead of an open space for them to express themselves and to
Yeah,
be understood.
not
And it's
intentional.
hard. And no one does it, like you said, none of us do this intentionally. And I think every parent does do it at some point. And you just, like you're sharing, it's that awareness and being able to say, "Whew, okay, step back. I need to figure out how to handle this differently."
Yeah, even I do it. Even I do it.
Yeah.
I never, ever, ever wanted to do that to my kiddos, right? Because I felt that my whole childhood.
Yeah.
So it's we're always on our edge as parents. That's why it's so exhausting, right?
Yeah.
Client told me a couple of days ago, if I were going to tune into my kiddo, it seems like, it would take all of my energy every day, or to my kids. She has 3 kids.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait to talk to her when we're done working together, because she's going to realize it's a lot of self work, but it actually makes things easier in the end because
Right.
connection comes first. And so we can more, if we're willing to be humble and honest with ourselves, we can more quickly recognize, oh, I was doing shaming there. That does not feel right. I don't know what to do or how to respond, but I can come back and repair with my child and start
Mm.
again. I mean, we're
Yeah.
always just course correcting. Shame and vulnerability, they sit really close together.
Yeah.
So it's another dance that we do as parents, right? We want our kids to be able to be vulnerable with us, to be themselves.
Mm.
And we want to actually share that we are also human and vulnerable, um, all without the shame needing to come in there. But if you are
Mm.
sensitive as an adult, or have a sensitive child, we have to remember that they sit really close together, shame and vulnerability.
Mm. That's so true and so important. And I think it relates to what you've shared a little bit about not trying to be perfect, because
Mm.
that in and of itself can be so toxic to have this like feeling. I had a kid say to me one time, when you try to do everything so perfectly, it makes me feel like I have to do everything perfect. And it was
Yeah.
just such an eye opener, right? That like, oh my gosh, without even knowing it, that's what I am sharing. That's what I'm teaching you.
Yeah, we are models, right? So
Yeah.
it's not half of, more than half of it is the modeling versus the language.
Mhm.
Language is important. And I work with families a lot on intentional word choice, intentional language.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but it's our example that really speaks the loudest. What
Mhm.
are we modeling? Parenting is not supposed to be performative. Naturally, the little ones look to us, we're bigger and seem to know more. So they think we've got it all figured out, and we don't. And I don't think we want to hold on to that facade in any way.
Yeah.
It's my practice and my belief, and I work on this with parents in my coaching to instead bring authenticity out. Oh, that I don't like how that came out. I'm sorry, kiddo. I'm really working on that. Right?
Mhm.
So that in the family environment, the home, everyone respects and honors that each individual, small or big, tall or tiny, is on their own path. They each have their own strengths, and every single one of them is working on certain things.
Mhm. Yeah. And trying really hard to do their best, right? No matter
That's
what. That's the natural way. Um, you mentioned that you've shared some examples that are more related to younger kids, and I know that you typically work with kids that are in that like 2 to 12-year-old range, or parents of those children. So I was thinking I have the opposite experience. I worked with a lot of teenage kids, but I also understand the importance of building blocks and how we build and start the relationship, the trust, the vulnerability, all the things we're talking about begins very early. And when you can build that, then it makes some of those things that I think people are afraid of in the teenage years a little bit easier to deal with because you have that base. So I don't know. My thought was, do you run into people when you're in your practice? Do you run into people that are maybe nervous about the teenage years, or talk about that as like a preventative thing that they're trying to really build their kids up and prepare for when their kids become even more outspoken and independent and maybe different than they expected?
Mhm. All the time. First of all, I'm especially passionate about these early years. I believe I've always worked in this space, right? Elementary school and younger. Um, because I really believe these are the years where we are laying the tracks. These are the foundational years for our relationship with our kids. And they are relationships that need to be tended to. And so I just so strongly myself believe that these are the most important years. And in getting ahead of adolescence, which can be so swirly and confusing and brings all kinds of actually really interesting and funny and scary, all kinds of new things. However, if we've got that, we've fortified the connection, we've got a trust that is unbreakable, is really really deeply seated, we will experience the teenage years, the tween and teen years in a much, much different way. With that said, a lot of parents do come um, in the spirit of your question earlier. You know, what do they come to me with concerns already about adolescence or even the upper elementary school years, because the tween changes are starting much earlier now, so fourth grade.
Mm, yeah.
And so, yeah, a lot of families come either with fear about that on the horizon, or they're already starting to experience it and are concerned it's too early, or they just feel thrown by it, right? Um, so yes, my work with families, Shelley, is so much about really building that trust and prioritizing the connection again and again and again and again. Families work with me for a minimum of 3 months typically, but that's because it takes so much practice, right?
Right.
Shifting the mindset and then how you approach all of your challenges and interactions and discussions and family meetings and even just daily language, right? And so you need years and years and years of practice ahead of adolescence.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When I used to work in criminal justice and I would have a kid that got in trouble with the law, parents would come to me and say, well, how do I change this? How do I fix this? How do I fix him or her? And my statement back was always, there's always room for change, but it took a lot of years to get to where you and your relationship with your child is now and the things that your child is doing. It's going to take a little bit of time to rebuild that, to come back to where do we want to go from here. And it's just sometimes I think we miss the transitions. We miss the times when our kids move or change or growing up and they need us to show up in a different way.
Yes. And part of that is the reframe when they're young. Every day, every week, every month, they're changing, and
Yeah.
how can you just sit back even once a week and just look at them for 2 minutes and just take in who the heck are you now, right? Or ask some questions without an agenda or right or wrong, but just some questions to let them share with you who it is they're becoming. They're always changing. It's magic, really. But we're also, if we're aware, are sort of chasing them. Wait, okay, wait, I see change. Let me find out who you are now. What's happening now, right?
Yeah.
And back to the self-awareness piece, because it gave me goosebumps when you said put the word relationship into your description of those of those conversations. We can't be connected to others or really compassionate with others if and until we are connected to ourselves and compassionate with ourselves.
Mm.
And I want to say sadly, but just realistically, this is another theme. Parents come to
Mhm.
me, and this piece is out the window, right? We're doing
Yeah.
for our children, and we forget about. I'm not talking self care like getting massages. I'm talking about self care. Oh, I have an inner voice, and how do I pause long enough to hear it? Or,
Mhm.
right, just being gentle with yourself when you maybe don't act in a way you're super proud of. This sort of practice informs your parenting because it's honest, it's
Mm.
authentic, compassionate, it's connected. And those are the things that need attending to when we are working on and building relationship, which
Mhm.
ours with our children, those are relationships. They're not just parent child parenting, it's relationship work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you've gotten interested in working with moms as well, daughters and moms. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about how that got started for you.
Well, I'm a girl mom, so there's bias, of course. And I have been interested in the feminine my whole life, really. Um, for many years, out of defensiveness, I may have presented in my 20s and early 30s, um, high achieving, a little bit more masculine. But once I started my really deep therapy, I have decades of therapy and analysis. It became really clear to me really fast that it's that softness that I want to nurture in myself. And it's hard in the society that we live in today, right? Patriarchal, society that is messaging implicitly to girls and women all the time how they should or shouldn't be. And so that just started to rise in me as part of my own evolution. Um, and nurturing my own softness as I matured and aged. And I continue to do so. There's that beautiful saying, I think it's from the Bible: soft front, hard back,
Mm.
wild heart, right?
Yeah.
And love this. So in any case, back to girls and moms, when I was in college, I would find beautiful It's another very personal story. I'm getting very personal today. Postcards of women who were pregnant, right? It was the feminine that always drew me. My favorite book was Mists of Avalon. I was drawn to this world without really any examples from it or knowledge about it. So when I got older, actually, when I left the classroom, I became a birth doula for a dozen years and attended over 100 births and found myself just enamored of the female experience. And from there, at the end of that part of my career is when I had my own baby girl. And that too felt like part of the story. And very quickly, I could see, despite my experience and my expertise, I could see how, and her being raised mostly in a Waldorf community, no media, very little, I could see the effects already on her as a young one. And so this is when, by the time she was 5, I had her in girls' leadership courses, all the way through elementary school. And after a year of being in them, I then became an educator for them. I was so passionate about what they were teaching young girls. And they are groups where you come together, girl grown up, so that adults are learning too, the supportive language and how to help build agency and sense of voice in young girls. So I became an educator for them and then ended up running their Midwest region for Girls Leadership, which is a nonprofit out of California, all before COVID, of course. And then that disappeared. My role disappeared. So it just grew and grew and grew, right? And then my work moved back toward parenting versus birth. And so girls and moms have a special place in my heart. I'm living it every day. Now my daughter is in adolescence, so I have an almost teenager. And I'm still as passionate about it as ever. So I thought, I work with families who have boys and girls all of the time. And when 2024 kicked off, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do just a side passion project and offer a little mini series for moms of daughters, because if you think parenting's juicy for me, I could talk about it all day long. If we bring in that feminine piece, it's even more. I mean, it's just a side love of mine. Yeah.
That's very cool. What kind of, I'm assuming that some of the topics you cover are similar to the things you just shared. So things about having agency, understanding who you are and not being influenced as much by media and things around you, and being in leadership. What other kind of things can people expect to encounter if they were to be part of your program?
Oh, you mean the mom-daughter miniseries?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's just a side offer that I'm offering this first quarter of this year. I haven't decided if I'm going to continue it, but we talk a lot about inner voice, self-talk, and how to develop, in response to all the messaging around perfection and appearance and the pressure that's on young girls. So what does your self-talk sound like? How do we model that for our kiddos? What our healthy self-talk sounds like, doing that out loud. I help a lot of parents with that metacognition piece, and then how to just think out loud what their inner thoughts are so their girls can hear that, right?
Yeah.
And talk with them about their inner voice. We focus on really tuning in to themselves. So really self-care, I don't love that word anymore, but self-care versus people pleasing. That's another trend that girls tend to unconsciously move toward. And we don't want that. We want them instead to listen to themselves, right? If I had a parent who, when I was little, had said, your body has all the answers, just listen to your body, I would have had a completely different life. I don't know about you, but this is what I work with moms on, right? Just
very cool.
Give that power back to your girl. Your body has the answer, right? So we work on agency and voice and confidence and how to advocate for themselves from that place of tuning in.
Yeah. This is kind of a good time for me to ask you one of my favorite questions. I ask almost every single person I interview this question, and that is, how do you think parents need to show up for their children? What's the number one most important thing in how they show up?
Number one, only one?
You can say more.
Okay, I'll highlight one as a top, and that would be the focus of my work, which it really is about prioritizing connection. That's it, and it's nuanced, that those words, but what it means is, above and beyond anything else, attending to, acknowledging, and embracing and leading with connection is key when they're young. Key. Most of the misunderstanding, most of the overwhelm, most of the frustration is because we're disconnected from them and or from ourselves.
Beautiful. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience today that we haven't talked about?
Just that I think everyone needs support in their parenting. Our world is just so full and so fast. We're moving at just an incredible speed. And it's hard to attend to connection when we're moving like that. It's hard to even see it. So I don't work with people typically in crisis, right? I work with those who are genuinely curious about how to slow down a little bit to actually make these years really meaningful and just threaded with connection with their kiddos. They get ahead of the teen years disconnect that can happen. It doesn't need to. Those are beautiful years now too. We're almost to 8th grade with my daughter that I was talking to before, and I can tell you it doesn't need to be a scary time, but it takes preparation. So I guess I just want to say, book a free consult. Let's chat and talk about how I might be of support. You don't need to have an identifiable screaming issue, right? But if you're curious about how to be more curious, if you're curious about upping your social and emotional intelligence at home and deepening your connection with your kiddos, book a free consult and let's get on a Zoom and talk.
I love it. And I will share your information in the show notes so people will know exactly how to get a hold of you through your website and the different things you have available. I also want to let people know that Jen is going to be speaking as part of Parent Engagement Network Stress and Anxiety Conference that's coming up here in BBSD, Boulder Valley School District. It is a Penn collaborator. She's going to be a Penn collaborator and talk about how to get comfortable in the uncomfortable, managing big emotions. So a very important conversation similar to what we've been talking about today. So that talk is happening on April 3rd at Foothills Elementary, and you can register for that. I'll put that information in the show notes as well. So for parents and kiddos that are in elementary school and preschool, she's going to be offering a 3-part parenting follow-up series after this talk. So if this is intriguing to you, if you're hearing that this is the kind of conversation you want to be able to have with grace with your children, then just you can go to our website. You can go to Jen's website and get tons more information about this. And I also just want to say before we go that I want to give a shout out for Broomfield Community Foundation, the Collegiate Coaching Services, and the Lafayette YMCA for all their generous support. So take some time to check out our website. That is www.penbv.org. For those of you that aren't local, we often have some resources on there that you can download, or talks that we've done for things like the Stress and Anxiety Symposium that you can watch. So feel free to go there. And also, if you're inspired to be a donor, a sponsor, one-time or a monthly donor, anything that you can offer to our nonprofit is always so appreciated. So thank you again for being here with us today, Jen. It's been super fun to talk about. what you do in your work.
Thank you so much, Shelley.
All right. Until next time, happy parenting.